Kyle comes to us as a co-founder of Starfish Canada with a master's degree from Simon Fraser University's School of Resource and Environmental Management and an MBA in Sustainable Innovation from the University of Victoria. Kyle bridges the worlds of social impact, climate justice, and community engagement together to support those looking to develop the skills necessary for climate resilient leadership. It is this work that awarded him the 2024 Global Impact Award from McMaster Alumni Association and a 2025 fellowship from the University of Pennsylvania's Global and Social Impact House. Kyle is also a professor at the University of Victoria teaching in entrepreneurship, organizational behavior, and fundraising for social purpose. Dr. Sujane Kandasne is an assistant professor in the Mary Kurtzik School of Global Health and School of Medicine, Department of Medicine at McMaster University, and adjunct faculty in the Department of Child and Youth Studies at Brock University. She is an intersectional environmentalist, health research methodologist, and community-centered practitioner. Her work focuses on using evidence-informed community-based strategies to improve the health of people and the planet. She primarily studies the early origins and prevention of chronic disease, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and chronic disease risk factors across the life course, in partnership with systematically underrepresented populations. Sujane is the co-founder of Peach Health Ontario and currently serves as the Director of Learning and Development at the Starfish Canada. Sujane also teaches planetary health through McMaster University Global Health Master's of Science and PhD program in the PGME and plays a role in a network of environmental literacy educators with environmental and climate change Canada.
Thank you. Well, great to be back here at McMaster and to tell you all about our origin story, which happened 15 years ago. And it's funny, we've been joking around all day about like what was on campus 15 years ago versus what's on campus now. Our buildings, our art buildings, how things moved, all this sort of thing. So we won't do the when I was that age or when I was your age sort of thing. But nonetheless, it's been really great experience over the past 15 years. We're happy to tell you lots about it. Nope, that's the wrong one. I'll figure this out. There we go. All right, so I thought I would just start like really down close to the beginning. This is from December 20th, 1992. This is my third Christmas in itself. I grew up really close to here in Aurora, Ontario. Many of you probably know it's a suburban town. It's certainly an up-and-coming place when I was growing up. We got our first theater when I was in high school. I worked at the first Starbucks, which was also a pretty big novelty back in the day. I grew up in a town where I played out on the streets, and so there was a lot of kids who were my age on our little boulevard, and so we would go play road hockey or be in each other's backyards or those sorts of things. I grew up in a space where, there was an affordance and privilege and possibility to certainly do those things, and by many stretches had it correct. However, there's a lot that sort of happens to a kid when you grow up gay in a suburban town that is a little bit more conservative in its approach, and in a family that was certainly quite more religious in comparison to maybe some other spaces. And so I grew up in a space where it certainly wasn't okay to kind of be the person who I wanted to be. So often reflected into myself and kind of kept things really close to my chest. I didn't certainly talk about it. Maybe cognitively I maybe could have figured out what was going on in my brain. It was certainly not a space where I actually even would admit it to myself, let alone other people. I joke in a very, in a kind of depreciating way that I kind of was really bad at hiding it. Things to the nature that most people around me would often ask them because of how threatening it felt to who I in the context I lived in, vehemently deny it. And that shows up in when you get to high school in the form of bullying. I was the kid who would walk home from 20-minute walk, maybe often carrying the French horn, the instrument that I played. Would have folks that drive by, yell down the window or roll down the windows to yell something pretty derogatory at me. There was a few times where either garbage was thrown, once a paintball gun was used actually, and my friend was on the sort of the roadside and actually got hit by it. And I remember her crying and saying to me why did it I don't understand why people do this. Why would they do it? And for me, knowing kind of what was going on, I felt really the need for that. Um, it's as I grew up, I realized, things have changed since then. I certainly realized how to be comfortable with who I am, to actually be authentic to myself and my community around me, and I'm very thankful for the opportunities that I have to speak out and to be authentic and to actually use my voice for good. When I think about doing equity and justice work, I'm often rooted in those experiences that I didn't, while I had a lot of affordance and privilege, I also did feel the ability to be myself, and I want people to be able to have space to it and be truly and authentically themselves. So a lot has happened since that third Christmas, but I'm certainly very thankful for the RC Flowers program.
Me as well. It's been a great pleasure to, work alongside you and get to know you over the years. In a parallel world, here's me back in, I think probably around the same time as your Christmas photo. I grew up in a small East York neighborhood in Toronto, and what was behind me was this beautiful park, Taylor Creek Park. I don't know if any of you have been there or heard of it, but it's a pretty big stretch of land that goes from about Donville's Road to Dawes Road, and has quite a bit of trails and shade and lots of old trees that you can kind of sit under and like really appreciate the outdoors. And so you'd find me, often in my snowsuit or in my shorts in the summer and just being outside. And I think my parents made it really the easy choice to be outside. Grew up in a house where they didn't want us watching TV. We didn't have cable. They said, no TV, you can play outside, or you can do your homework, or you can advance yourself in some other way other than, rotting away in front of the television. So we picked being outside and, getting that appreciation from a young age, I think really inspired me to carve the path that I carved as I grew older. And oftentimes, in Taylor Creek, there was a big creek with lots of frogs, and spent a lot of afternoons kind of chasing those little guys down the creek, reading under the big trees, and making snowmen and rolling around in the snow with my friends and my sibling. And all those experiences, as I said, I think almost served as a bit of like a hard wiring for that experience and for the appreciation of what's around us, and kind of naturally pushed me towards taking that as part of my identity. I guess growing up, I mean, it's not like, even now, I don't think even though my bio it says intersectional environmentalist, like, to me, that is just truly just a word that means, you care about the natural world around you, and you're in the actions that you take, whether it's scholarly or like more practice-based or just in everyday living, have that lens as you move through the day. And so I'm appreciative for the 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old version of myself that spent that time outside. And when I think about my own kids, I see that they naturally want to be outside as well. And maybe that's a good thing, trying to keep them away from screens and outside of like those typically sedentary kind of behaviors. So yeah, I guess 6-year-old me is grateful that now 6-year-old son of mine is also rolling around in the snow and reading books under the trees and then chasing those frogs.
All right, let's fast forward quite a bit from 4, 5, 6-year-old us to this. This was the back steps of Hamilton Hall, is what we introduced when we started Starfish Canada in 2010. There's even other photos that make Sujane and I cringe, but this is the one that we agreed that is a little bit more postable. We started in biodiversity class, actually. Bio 2D03, I think was the course code. It actually was in MDCL, so the room over, or the building over just over that way, and we were learning about a lot of incredible things about climate change and biodiversity and what solutions are theoretically possible. And then we get out of the classroom and start talking to friends and other folks in the community about it, and we realized that there were so many different vantage points on it, but maybe not the accessibility of knowledge or the right tools or techniques in order to actually have meaningful conversations about that. We felt like it was just kind of difficult to talk about climate change in 2010, despite learning in class how important it was to be having those conversations. We did find that folks were curious to find answers, which to us means that there must have been barriers to meaningful participation in some shape or form. That we need to make space for folks to have genuine conversations and make genuine contributions. So in the pursuit of how to figure out how to do that, we wanted to create something that would do that. Recognizing we're here in Wilson College and thinking about civic engagement, I thought I would bring in the idea of the spectrum of public participation, which the International Association of Public Participation is often quoted as a big part of those who have created this tool. When we think about that spectrum of public participation, there is just informing or consulting folks, which is one side of the story where people are getting told what happens. On the other side, there's empowerment, where you think of people sitting in a circle and they're implementing what they decide, feeling genuinely empowered by the nature of what they get to do. I think we were aiming for empowerment, really, by the nature of what we wanted to do. In order to do that in an equitable, just way, we had to understand exactly how to create tools and systems in order to help people do that. And that was certainly a big part of what we wanted to do. So we brought folks together from all across the university. Any friend that wanted to participate was welcome to participate. We asked people to come in from nursing, from engineering, from genuinely any department. It didn't matter where you were from, but we wanted you to feel like you were invited to the table and could find meaningful ways to contribute, to bring in the things that you were learning as a student, to apply sustainability or biodiversity or into a lens to it. We built a writing schedule. We figured out all the semantics of how to create this online space, which started as a blog. In 2010, we called it the starfish2010.com. We clearly rebranded. That was not a great name to start with, but here we are. We didn't quite know what we were doing in some ways, but we wanted to try something, and I think we found the way to make that happen.
And so officially we launched in November of 2010. And getting to meet all of these different folks and thinking about how we could present information about environmental issues in a simple and fun and engaging way to others that might not have grown up with similar childhoods such as ourselves, where it was kind of part of our identity already by that point. But how do we really engage people that weren't at the table or didn't care? And so that's what really kind of fueled us or catalyzed the motivation to kind of push this forward. We loved what we were doing, and we recognized early that it resonated with community members. It resonated with partners across the university, across Hamilton as well. And people were telling us that they would bookmark our page, our www.thestarfish2010.com was bookmarked so that they can go on and regularly read some of the articles that we were posting. We had members of parliament that had retweeted some of our work in the early days. And also a celebrity, Jared Leto, back in 2010, that reposted one of our articles about shark finning, which really kind of drove some extra momentum to our pages and gave us a bit more visibility to what we were doing. But we, used that as measures and little nuggets of the fact that perhaps we were onto something. And so we tracked along in 2010 onwards, and expanded our work and tried different things, got really good at some things, didn't pursue other things. And when Kyle had moved out to the West Coast, when was that? 2011. So shortly after, we of course wanted to keep this work going, and we expanded across the national scope. That's when we first discovered how challenging it is to work across time zones and people's different schedules, and and priorities, but we kept things going. We launched our Top 25 Under 25 Environmentalist Program, which is one of the programs that we run annually to celebrate and amplify the voices of young leaders across Canada. We kept our blog alive, which became a youth journal over the years. So currently it exists as a partnered writer-editor relationship where we post various content over the weeks. And we did workshops. Initially started off with a partnership with Let's Talk Science, the McMaster campus. They did not have an environmental any education kits in that space. So we first worked together to kind of build that out, and then eventually we started doing more school-based programming with the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board as well as the Toronto District School Board over the years. And for me, I think through all of those experiences, like where it started to click was where the platform that we were seeking to develop felt less like a platform and more like a home. In the early days, we weren't really looking to scale necessarily. I think we were just passionate about what we were doing, and we were hopeful that we would find others that could help vocalize the stories of change and celebrate each other so that we can all feel seen in this environmental movement. And when the signals started to come faster and louder, and we had students emailing us to say that these features gave them confidence to pursue sustainability careers. Teachers using our case studies in the classroom or on exams, or community groups reaching out to us because they saw youth leadership was taken seriously. That really propelled things and kind of, pulled us in for the long run. And back to Top 25, I think the turning point with that was that, we weren't just highlighting young leaders, but almost helping to launch their careers in some way. We watched alumni step into national roles and win major awards, influence policy, and be change makers in their communities. And that's when I realized, this is not just a platform, it's an engine to catalyze. And we also knew we were onto something great because the community kept pulling us forward and kept us in the game. Every time we expanded from either a storytelling initiative or to mentorship to leadership development, we were meeting youth that were there with new ideas, new energy, new courage, and the work started to feel less like ours and more like theirs. And I don't think that feeling has really gone away. Every year, we see the same spark when young people take the mic or attend a workshop or participate in one of our programs that re-envisions mind thinking around what's possible. And I put this image up here to represent that catalysis and that idea that, education, whether it's running of workshops or programs or community engagement or mentorship or programming, is not the filling of a bucket, but the lighting of a fire. And we've built a lot of our programming around that idea that, these exothermic reactions that take place in spaces of community that are safe and empowering.
All right. So, I think what we've learned along the way and how is been pretty profound, and I love the idea of what Sujane said about being pulled. And I think often when we think about entrepreneurship or business or even how you start something, sometimes we feel like we have to have everything together all at once and really have everything perfect in order to do it. I think even when I think about democracy and engagement and how we actually drive that through in terms of process, sometimes it's worth noting that you don't want to have everything perfect or all at once. You want to be able to lean into the insights that you do along the way. And I think that's certainly how we've evolved. We've been able to build hopeful moments for a lot of young folks in Canada, over 50,000 since we started in 2010. It's no small feat, and it's not just ours, certainly, to wear. It's certainly the product of that community that was driving us forward and helping us do incredible work. I think sometimes seeing these visuals is better than the 1,000 words that I could ramble on and tell you about. So, as the first part, I want to show you our Changemaker Summit, which we launched 2 years ago. We're working towards our third iteration this March. I think this video does just a really good job of summing up some of the hope that we see people experience. So we're here at the beautiful Checkema Center in Squamish, British Columbia for our first annual Youth Environmental Changemaker Summit. We've been convening 75 youth leaders from all across the country here to talk about what's on their hearts and minds as we're thinking about how we can take action for climate and environmental sustainability.
There's 75 of us out here from across Canada.
I think a lot of us feel a lot of times alone in this environmental movement and this fight for climate change, climate justice.
I think art is a really powerful way for youth to deal with these difficult emotions that come with the climate crisis.
It was part of our Indigenous learning sessions to go to a 750-year-old tree, and it was really nice to have the group all wrap around the tree and just be in the forest together. I'm kind of a softie for that stuff, so.
It's electrifying. Everyone is so excited. They're all amped up to learn, to be with each other, to build a community. Some of the challenges young people face now as climate activists is that we're not really being heard. It's our future on the lines, and yet we're not really being heard. So it's great to be here together and to actually be able to hold space for each other and to actually hold space to feel.
Everyone has a place in the climate movement, no matter what your passions are, what your strengths are, what you want to contribute. You do have a place.
There's a greater understanding now for youth about the importance of rest as a radical act has been something that's come up several times, and I'm excited to incorporate more of that rest as resistance into my own climate work.
Couple different uses for this plant. It is partially traditional food, but then also it can be used to catch food in the ocean, and I'll explain how that works.
So there is a war canoe and the journey canoe. So the journey canoe, that's where the two-seater is and sit side by side. The war canoe is singular, so there's the single, the double, the 4, the 6, and the 11.
Does anyone know what plant this is? It kind of looks like mint, but it's not quite.
I think some of the big takeaways from the Youth Environmental Changemaker Summit will be that youth can come together and feel community building. They can feel empowered. They can feel like their voices are actually being heard and being listened to. They can feel that there's other participants and other community members across Canada who are feeling the same ways they do. And it's nice to have a community that they can lean on, to feel supported by, to actually be amplified through.
If you look around this summit, there are tons of change makers who are doing completely different things, from clean tech to storytelling to leading grassroots organizations. And I think that's the beauty of environmental advocacy. It brings people from all different interdisciplinary subjects and fields together because we're all aligned in the same vision and the same common goal. And I think Starfish Canada really helps bring those minds and those ideas together.
Our summit. Briefly, it's a 5-day experience for national climate leaders that come all across the country. They come to Vancouver. For many of them, it's their first time on a plane or even to the West Coast. If you know the West Coast, they drive up the Sea to Sky Highway, which is a beautiful view over what's called Sounds. It's a very, if you can picture what it might look like in terms of its beauty to look at the West Coast, you'll probably see beautiful oceans and mountains in your visual. And then they go to the Checkema Center, which is rooted in that rainforest that we saw there. That they spend 5 days learning, sometimes from us and most times from the Squamish Nation or members of the Squamish Nation who incorporate land-based learning into the program. When I think about, again, what we're talking about in terms of equity and justice work, in terms of democratizing process in order to create an element of engagement and civic engagement. I think we've built that into how we collaborate with the Squamish Nation and members of the nation. We basically say what kind of thing we want to do, and then we say, what do you think, and what would you like to do? And no matter what the response is, every year we kind of just give it a thumbs up, which can feel really threatening as someone trying to put on a thing, to try to say, like, okay, well, I want to make sure it meets objective A, B, C, and D. It must fit these criteria or all these sorts of things. But we choose not to do that, actually. Last year, a friend of mine from the Squamish Nation said she'd like to run a session on the Squamish language and its relation to climate change. And if I was going with like a funder priority, potentially, if that I could probably I might have to try to make it fit or whatnot. But instead, as someone who wanted to collaborate with them, I said, yeah, great. You tell me what you want, and I'm going to figure out how to make it happen. And it was one of the coolest sessions that we had. Is certainly in the nature of listening to them talk about the Squamish language and how actually the climate change is impacting the words that they use, because their words are often tied to seasonality. So seasons are shifting, their words no longer make sense, actually. And so they were talking about how even this endangered language, there's only 24 knowledge workers, is now actually threatened by the nature of climate change. Bringing that to young leaders to understand the ricochet impacts that climate change has and how their climate solutions maybe will or won't impact that is a profound insight that we found, not by trying to be methodical, but by trying to be organic. We're excited to run this for its third year this upcoming March. And as you can tell, there's also opportunities for them to engage in educational long-house, which for many non-Indigenous folks, it might not be a thing that you can experience. And so for them to actually hop into a longhouse and understand, protocol practices to be able to make bannock, sometimes soup, those sort of things, it's a really profound experience.
I just wanted to speak to one of the education projects that we're currently working on. I guess initially when this idea started to sprout and the seeds were being planted around this, it was really around bringing together multiple worldviews in developing climate literacy curriculum. And when we started this work, probably around 2014, 2015 or so, I truly feel like the granting space just wasn't really ready for those kinds of ideas. And for us, we tried very hard, but had limited success securing funding to be able to do work that brought multiple worldviews together to design climate curriculum. But that didn't stop us. I think we kept working hard. We kept those informal conversations alive. We kept, meeting new people, new experts, and eventually kind of evolved this project, Interweaving Voices Together. It's a project that we're currently doing with the Six Nations community and youth climate activists from the nations. And it's all about co-designing a two-eyed, multiple worldviews approach to climate literacy. And so we completed our first co-design workshop over the summer, where we brought educators and leaders and youth activists from Six Nations together with educators from reserve schools as well, to co-develop what this curriculum could look like. What could we create that, we could be proud of, that, parents would be proud that their kids were learning and that kids would be energized and excited to learn. And so we also worked with Through the Red Door, which is a film company based out of Six Nations, to put together a little synopsis video of that first co-design workshop. So it will explain quite a bit of what happened, and so as Kyle said, and pictures worth 1,000 words. So here we go.
After today's session, I am super hopeful that we can create something that is really impactful, really meaningful, and really needed within our community on and off reserve.
I really appreciated the fact that folks came in with such an openness and willingness to explore different questions with one another.
I'm feeling really energized and really inspired by all of the insightful and beautiful minds that came together to co-design and take that first step towards co-creating the program that will evolve from these series of workshops.
In this day and age, especially, I believe everyone can learn from the lessons and what we talked about today on how to connect youth back to the land, non-Indigenous students and Indigenous students.
And it's finding a way that we can all work together as a community to help our youth learn in the best way that they want to learn, focusing on their voices and what is really needed in our community.
Something that came up during the session was a lot of pressure on teachers trying to make sure that they get to every part of the curriculum. And with that, there's an absence of land-based learning and cultural heritage incorporated into the work that they do. So this would be able to help, connect students and teachers and bring them back to cultural teachings and traditional knowledge in a way that's really meaningful and also lifts some of that load off of teachers' shoulders.
Today was really uplifting, and it's just a really good feeling just to know that there's more people out there with a similar goal, I guess, for things that are needed within our school systems. But I feel like it's really going to be beneficial, and this is going to be a really good experience.
I think what we're working towards is more of a holistic approach towards education that also brings in community, which I think is really central for overall health and well-being.
And I think it'll be a really positive contribution, positive learning experience, positive reflection experience, positive life experience for the youth that get to partake in the finalized version of this.
I'm excited about this program. I believe in it. I feel like it will enrich their lives and give them wellness and comfort and hope for their future.
And as you mentioned, we are thankful that, I think as Sujane said, well, we were initially trying to figure out this work because it was difficult to do. We found the right way to build a collaborative ecosystem to make it work. And this Environment Climate Change Canada actually funds this work, so their environmental literacy fund. And that was a whole connection of partnerships too. We had some of our, when we figured out how to scale up our fundraising work and a collaboration of partnerships that would make it work, we actually had the first funder introduce us to the second, and then the second helped us with our government relations, and we actually built this collaborative ecosystem that helped make this possible. And so, while as a serial fundraiser, I get way more no's than I ever get a yes. Very grateful for the opportunity that we built. So where are we headed now? We are working on figuring out lots of our own things after 15 years of doing good work. We don't want to be stagnant, and I don't think we ever have been, but we want to make sure that we do things in a way that makes sense. This year, we actually merged with another charity that was called C-Smart. And so some of their staff come over to our team, and we're also building a whole new suite of programming. And so through that, we're actually doing a lot of review of who we are and how we want to show up in the world right now, which is a very fun process, a very daunting process, but one that I think is going to reap quite a bit of benefits. I had the opportunity to be in Manchester last week, where I was called the Penn Oxford Social Impact House, teaching lots of different tools and techniques on how to do things. One of them is called the most important sentence in the world. It's meant to be like when someone says, "What do you do?" What is your response? What's your one sentence response? Not your mission, because your mission is a little bit of a different thing, but how do you actually talk about who you are and how you market yourself? And so it has a little bit of a format, but it's meant to be like your goal and how you do it in a pretty clear and succinct way. This is the version I came up with last week. As I told Sujane, no one has approved this, so it doesn't mean that it's going to stick necessarily, but the first go at it is something like this that we're aiming towards for next year. That we build confidence and resilience amongst children and youth across Canada, and we do that by delivering climate education and leadership programs. I'm excited by the nature of us being able to get to do this work, and I think one of the ways that we're describing our work is there's an educational, learning, and development-oriented bucket, and then a leadership bucket. So I'll pass it to Sujane to talk about her first one.
So, a few words about our education, learning, and development program that largely services children aged 5 to 16 years old. So the first image that you see there on the left-hand side is from one of our very first storybook projects that we completed in partnership with the Markham Public Libraries. And this workshop it can be a multiple day session or a longer single day activity, but it really focuses on having participants reflect on their community's past, present, and future, and what they hope their community will become. And along the way, they participate in these facilitated activities and discussions, both inside and outside the classroom, where in the end, a children's book is actually produced with the drawings and the text. And oftentimes, school libraries will want a copy of that to host in their own libraries. We've also done, depending on the school and the context, an exhibition that's featured all of the students' artwork and stories, and have invited parents and caregivers and other leaders in the community to come and see what the participants have written about and what their hopes and desires are for the future. As Kyle mentioned, we did merge with C-Smart over the summer, and we have a whole suite of C-Smart programs also that run out on the West Coast, such as Water Champions and other summer camps, and community cleanups as well that are led all in person. Third, we've got Youth U, which is a new program that we're currently developing, and this is about bringing technology into the classroom, which is a priority for many of the school boards. This one in particular is a drone-based workshop that helps students document tree coverage and tree canopy so that they can collect data in real time and be part of the decision-making around that.
And then we have our leadership programs. And so these are mostly for folks around the age of 16 going up to the age of 25. I wrote plus because 25-ish. Tend to, for government grants, if you've ever dabbled in those, they often have harder deadlines than we've ever had. So, 25-ish is what age for that. And these are all things that we've been doing well and know that they provide such incredible insight and support to people that we want to keep them going. We're still doing our youth journal. We called it a blog 15 years ago. We now call it a journal. The URL has changed. And it's a really incredible opportunity for young folks to learn how to write for online audiences. They come into the program, they get onboarded through a nature of online modules and community-based sort of approaches so that they can learn how to write. For us, we did science, so we learned, at school how to write for, technical and academically, but sometimes those things don't translate well to, an actual sort of trying to understand how to communicate to folks who have that science background. And so we teach those things like SEO and climate storytelling and all those sorts of things. And then they get paired with an editor who helps them through the rest of the process and produce content for our journal. I totaled, it's probably out of date now because it's been a week. I think it was 140 articles just this year. Our readership is around 125,000 online as well annually. So it's not small, and it's also just a really great opportunity to be able to produce really cool content. Our Top 25 program, our Top 25 Environmentalist Under 25 program is morphed into Climate 75, which is a leadership program that is about 8 months long. One of the first things they do is they get a care package from us from the values-aligned businesses to say, in order to care about the planet, you have to care for yourself. So there's folks like Arc'teryx and Lush and True Earth puts in some laundry strips. There's all these things that will help folks care for each other from really cool businesses that go into that care package. And then they attend our summit. So the summit that I showed you the video of as a part of the Climate 75 program now. So they do a lot of learning in person over 5 days in March. And then after that, they go into streams. They can either write, speak, or facilitate for climate action. So now they focus in on skill development that helps them become comfortable and confident as a climate leader. So if they want to learn how to write, they'll do that. If they want to learn how to do public speaking, they can do that. Or if they want to help figure out how to convene and facilitate conversations, they can do that as well. There are mentors along each of those streams as well, so that people can guide and help them in that process. And they produce an output by the end of their econ, so around August 5. is when they'll produce their output. So either they've done speaking engagement, they facilitated the community conversation, or different article that goes on the lecture. We're very excited about the approach. It helps. We know that we've had a lot of great impact to help people over the years. So we'll continue that as well. To cap off, we wanted to share one more piece of the story with you. You have another video, I know, but it's our impact story. Naturally, we haven't released this last week as well, so you will see some visuals as well. We only gather in person a few times a year, so when we have the opportunity to do so, we take full advantage of all the footage that we get. To finish off, we'd love to share with you a little bit about where we're going.
Gives youth the motivation to continue pushing forward in this work? What a beautiful and big question.
I feel that more needs to be done to create space for youth to be recognized and to see the talent that's out there.
Youth voices, and youth in general, are the most impacted by climate change. And yet, we're the ones that have the least decision-making power.
We're trying to make a difference.
C'est tous les jours, si tu veux déplacer un truc, soit vous vous regroupez tous ensemble pour déplacer la montagne, mais tout seul, c'est vrai que c'est difficile. Mais lorsque l'engouement est là, nous sommes capables de déplacer des montagnes. C'est ce que je veux dire en tout cas.
So here at the Starfish Canada, we create space for people to connect, to dream, to inspire each other about what a climate future looks like, while providing them with the tools and resources so that they can actively be leaders in their communities.
There's so much hyper-local work going on across the country in various communities, and I'd love to see the Starfish continue to support that work through creating opportunities for youth to collaborate, connect, and rest and re-energize in the movement.
It's been very inspiring to be part of the Starfish community and see how so many other young people come from all walks of life and are developing so many different projects and initiatives.
So we do so many things, but learning is really one of the pillars of how the Starfish operates.
Even though what I think right now might be big, what I might do tomorrow could be even bigger.
Being here in this space and seeing youth that are bringing all these stories in and all this environmental work that they're doing in their communities, I realize I don't have to do that. I don't have to do everything because there's so many other people that are like-minded and in this climate environmental space.
So at the Starfish, we try to make sure that things are accessible. Like for the summit, if you're under the age of 25, we paid for your travel. A lot of people who are in these spaces don't have the luxury of time, as I like to say, or the privilege of finance. And so if we kind of try to help remove those barriers as we've done, that really helps with them being able to be in these spaces and connect with other people and try to bring some of those teachings back to their community as well.
It's been amazing to kind of highlight so many different facets of the environmental movement, from art to community programming.
Ce qui fait que ce sont les jeunes qui doivent s'investir là-dedans. C'est aux jeunes d'être écoutés, c'est aux jeunes parce que c'est eux la génération future, c'est eux qui peuvent réellement faire c'est eux les premiers impactés.
Get involved in the Starfish. There's a number of different ways to do that, whether that be through becoming a writer in our journal program or nominating somebody to be recognized in one of our programs, or even becoming a donor. Youth are the leaders of today, not just tomorrow.
Because all it takes is just one person to learn, and then they can educate thousands.
That's what we got. Well, we wanted to finish off on where we're going and how folks can support. So we've got some QR codes up here about our Keystone Club, which is our monthly donor program that helps us fuel our work. We have a new online store. We have hats, tees, sweaters, all really amazing things. I'm biased, but I think they're all really well designed. So feel free to shop there. And also, of course, following and sharing our content is a big piece of the puzzle. In order to do good work, we need to keep going through just some sharing content. That's it. Thanks, everyone.